evening, everyone. Welcome to the He is Greater Than I Gaming channel and podcast, video podcast to be exact. This is the very first video podcast we'll be doing. So anyone who is watching, whether it's live right now or whether you watch the replay or whether you listen once the podcast is uploaded, we appreciate you. We thank you for supporting us, and just thank you for tuning in. So this is the He is Greater Than I Gaming channel, and He is Greater Than I Gaming is first and foremost a ministry where we are trying to reach a world of lost people, because we know that Jesus Christ is not coming back until everyone has heard the gospel. And as Christians, we are called to spread the gospel. And we should be doing that in our day-to-day lives. And I know I'm not always the best at that. I try to be a living example of that, but a lot of times it doesn't always work, because I'm human. I know a lot of you out there can probably relate. Sometimes you have the best of intentions, but your flesh sometimes tends to take over. But that is what He is Greater Than I Gaming is about spreading the gospel. I have grown up around video games and played them pretty much my whole life. Which, by the way, let me introduce myself. You're listening to me talk and you don't even know who I am. My name is Jason, but in the gaming world I go by Cheeky Houdini. Most everybody will call me Cheeky in the gaming world, so feel free to call me that. But anyways, as I was saying, this channel, this podcast, this video podcast is going to be about spreading the gospel first and foremost. I enjoy playing video games. It's always been something I've enjoyed doing. And I have a ton of other interests and hobbies as well, which I'll get into in a minute. But the primary reason for this channel is to use my passion for video games to spread the gospel. And so that's why I started He's Greater Than I Gaming. And He's Greater Than I Gaming, that concept, He is Greater Than I, comes from John 3:30, which that verse says, He must become greater and I must become less. And so that's my motto for this entire vision that I've got, is making God known, making God greater, and making myself less. And in doing so, not only making God more important in my life, but hopefully pointing others to God in the process. So all that being said, I realized after I started this gaming channel and started streaming that, this may not be everybody's cup of tea to sit down and watch me play a video game. So, I was like, how can I reach more people? And so I thought about doing a podcast. And I can get my voice out through a podcast, and people can choose to listen to it or they can choose not to. But, it's a good way to kind of sort of separate the gaming from everything else, if that makes sense. We're gonna go with this and see where it goes, and we're just gonna put God first and see where He takes it. But we're gonna talk about a variety of different topics on this podcast. My primary topics are going to be related to faith, family. I'll delve a little bit into politics, even though I'm not much of a politician, and I don't really like politicians that much. The game of politics is horrible, and that's evidenced in our country right now. But the truth of the matter is, with everything that's going on in the world, if you don't know what's going on in politics, then you don't know what's going on. Excuse me while I rep the pep and take a sip of my Pepsi. But I'll talk a little bit about politics, but more so I will focus on talking about the state of our country and the world from a Christian perspective, from a biblical perspective, because that's the lens through which I see the world. I feel like as a Christian, that's how I should see it. So I'll talk a good bit about that. Like I said, I have other interests and hobbies as well. So some of the other things I'm going to be talking about are hunting, fishing, music. Good grief. Oh my gosh, how could I forget Georgia football? College football in general, but for sure Georgia football. So, food. I like to talk about food sometimes. So, if you like any of that stuff, this may just be the podcast for you. So, if you're listening now, I appreciate you tuning in. And I am going to open everything up tonight with a little bit of scripture. And that will lead me into what I want to kind of talk about for a little bit tonight. So, I think I actually, on one of my recent live streams, I recently read a couple of these passages actually, but I'm going to read them again because I think it ties into what I want to talk about. So, Psalm 125, starting in verse 1, says, "Those who trust in the Lord are steady as Mount Zion, unmoved by any circumstance. Just as the mountains surround and protect Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds and protects his people. For the wicked shall not rule the godly, lest the godly be forced to do wrong. O Lord, do good to those who are good, whose hearts are right with the Lord." Then, in Psalm 28, verse 9, it says, "Defend your people, Lord. Defend and bless your chosen ones. Lead them like a shepherd and carry them forever in your arms." And the main parts of that I want to focus on are where it talks about, obviously it talks about in the beginning, that those who trust in the Lord are steady as Mount Zion. So if you trust in the Lord, your foundation is going to be firm. But then down in verse 3, it says, "For the wicked shall not rule the godly, lest the godly be forced to do wrong." So, and then in a totally different chapter, it's talking about asking God to defend his people and to lead them and to carry them. So, obviously, if you haven't lived under a rock in the last year and a half, you know everything that's going on in the world. And I realize that everybody is not going to hold the same opinion as me. Everybody's not going to hold the same view as me on this, and that's okay. That's one of the great things about America is we're guaranteed the right to free speech. We're guaranteed the right to be able to believe what we want, think what we want, and say what we want, and not be, chastised or whatever the case may be. But whether you agree with me or not, that's beside the point, because I have a lot that I think about and a lot that I want to say and a message I want to get out. And if you're on board with that, great. If you're not on board with that, we can agree to disagree, and that's totally okay. I have disagreed with many people in the last year and a half, believe you me. But, last year started off like any other normal year, and time spring gets going good. Everybody's looking forward to, college football. Spring football is about to get winding up. March Madness was getting ready to go down. Most of us were probably just getting over the news of Kobe Bryant passing away, which was shocking. But then all of a sudden, we start hearing this stuff about the coronavirus and the dreaded coronavirus. And by the end of March, everybody's freaking out. Everybody's wearing masks because we don't know anything. We just know oh, we need to wear a mask, and things are getting shut down, businesses are closing, people are quitting jobs or losing jobs. And of course, in the midst of all that, you have who I think is the greatest president in history, under all kinds of attacks from, all kinds of people. And he's just trying to lead this country in the right direction. And you fast forward to now, and you think about everything that's happened with the election, whether you believe it was fraudulent or not. I believe it was. Then you go through all last summer with the rioting and the looting and just the hypocriticalness, if that's a word I can use. And that's on both sides. I'll go ahead and say hypocrites are on both sides of the political spectrum. But I'm not really delving into that right now. I'm just trying to make a point about where we're at right now as a country. And if you can't look around and see that we're divided, then I don't really know what to say. Because this country is divided. And it's not because of any one person. It's not because of Donald Trump. It's not because of Joe Biden. It's not because of Barack Obama or any president before them. You could say maybe each of them played a role in some division, but it's not because of any one sole person. But I can tell you that the media pushes division. That's my opinion. I believe they push division. They have an agenda, they have propaganda, and whatever they can do to make the almighty dollar, they're going to do. They will lie, they will deceive, they will put out false stories all the time. And you know it's true because you hear these stories and everybody's like, oh my gosh, can you believe this? And then a few months later it comes out and, oh, well, that actually wasn't completely true. The hot corner. Yes, headlines make money. You're exactly right, man. It doesn't matter what the lie is, and it doesn't even matter if it's the truth. There's a guy I listen to, I have a lot of respect for, and he said that the news is no longer about being right and reporting the truth. As long as you can report it first, it doesn't matter if it's the truth. Just get the information first and be the first to report it. And now we have this virus that you have, people over here on side A are, you need to wear a mask and you need to get the vaccine. And if you don't, then you don't love your fellow neighbor. And you have people over here on side B that are like, well, no, my health is my choice. This has over a 99% survival rate. I don't need to wear a mask. And I don't need to get a vaccine that's not even officially approved by the FDA, that's not proven, and that has been killing people. And, it's just... And now, okay, so where I live, there's a certain medical facility that is pretty much the predominant medical facility in the entire region. And they have now come out and said that all of their employees are going to either A, have to get the vaccine, or B, they're going to have to be tested 3 times a week if they don't get the vaccine. And I guess option C would be, if you don't do any of those, you can't work there. Now tell me how that sounds like America. Regardless of if you're given choices and options or not, that is not freedom. It's not. Being told you have to do this, or you can't work here. I understand, yes, there are certain times where certain things have to be in place that if you do this, you can't work here. Obviously, if you're a, serial rapist, you're not going to be able to work pretty much anywhere. Or if you're a child molester, obviously you're not going to be able to work at a daycare. Like, of course, things like that. things that are crimes. It's not a crime not to be injected with something that you don't know what it's going to do to you. It's not a crime not to wear something on your face because you don't feel like you should. And something I heard today that was very interesting that I had never heard before is, and of course this is all coming from a Christian perspective, bear in mind. But, we are all made in God's image. And when you put a mask on your face, you cover up that image. And we're even at the point now where, we're wanting kids to cover up their face. And, I fear for what these kids are going to grow up with if there's a world to grow up in. I fear for what, my kids are going to have to go through. But my kids will not wear a mask, cover up their face. Sad, so sad, no vaccine for me, Georgia boy. Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. I'm right here with the No Vax Club, so rock on. But, this is not America. And, what I was saying with the mask thing is, he said, you put this mask on, you cover up your image. And then it becomes almost like the analogy he used was you're a faceless stormtrooper at that point. Your facial expressions don't matter anymore. The kids in school can't smile at their fellow students and, enjoy seeing their facial expressions and interacting with them. Sometimes it's hard to understand people. As humans, we're accustomed to watching people when they speak and not only listening, but reading their lips and helping you decipher what somebody is saying. And now there's none of that for the last year. And as far as I'm concerned, there is nobody who's going to convince me, after I've gone the whole last year and a half without wearing a mask and been fine, not to mention the whole previous 34 years of my life gone without wearing a mask and been fine when I got the flu or some other sickness, that I need one now to protect me. I am of the belief that masks are not used to prevent you from getting sick. And I've been argued, oh my goodness, I've been argued this so many times. Well, if masks don't work, then why do doctors and nurses wear them in the operating room and stuff? And the most recent person that posed that to me, I said, you know what, that is a great question. Let me tell you, and I'm not even a medical professional. I can use my common sense and figure this out. Okay, so you wear underwear, right? You wear pants, right? And for the sake of being professional, say you pass gas. It's a gas, okay? It's in the air. People can smell that gas when you pass it. Your underwear, your jeans don't stop the gas. I've also heard the argument, well, if you pee your pants and you're not wearing pants, then the pee can get on somebody. But if you pee your pants and you're wearing pants, then the pee doesn't get on anybody. Very good point. Urine is a liquid. So if those are true, I have a mask on my face. If somebody passes gas through their underwear and their pants, I can still smell it. And, oh, by the way, the particles from when somebody coughs and those particles go out into the air, those are small enough to pass through the majority of masks that are being worn, because really, even doctors say the only mask that's going to do any good at all is a properly fitted N95, which most people do not have. And I mean, most people probably aren't going to walk around and wear, because it doesn't look as good as these fancy little cloth ones that you can wear with the Georgia Bulldogs on them, or your favorite sports team, or your favorite little bedazzled design or whatever. None of those are going to work. And back to what I was saying, the reason doctors and nurses wear them is so when bodily fluids go flying in the operating room, they don't get in their nasal cavities and their mouth. And vice versa, so they don't, secrete saliva out of their mouth or snot out of their nose into the patient, and mix bodily fluids. That's what those are for. Doctors and nurses were wearing face shields and masks way before the coronavirus in the operating room. Not because they were scared of getting sick from the patient or because they were scared of getting the patient sick. It's basically, essentially, cross-contamination, if you think about it. You're not wanting to get this patient's blood in your mouth, and you're not wanting to get saliva or anything from you in this patient. And you wear the face shield, in case you cut an artery or something and blood goes flying, it doesn't go in your eyes or something. Nobody wants that, obviously. But the past year and a half, we've been told to quit wearing masks, or to wear masks, and to, don't go see your friends, don't go see your family, you can't go see your grandma and your grandpa, and everybody else, can't go see them, got to stay home 6 feet apart. Don't know where the 6 feet came from. Apparently, if you're 6 feet apart, you're safe, but if you're 5 feet 11 inches, hey, you're in trouble. If you think about it, none of the stuff makes sense. And all it is F-E-A-R, fear. False evidence appearing real. And it is nothing more than Satan himself, the great deceiver, trying to A, divide people, B, he's trying to push people away from the truth. He's trying to deceive people. And if he can do that with fear, he will do it. That's probably his favorite thing to use, is fear. And that is what has been going on the entire last year and a half, is nothing but fear-mongering. I had already not seen my only living grandparent for a few months before the pandemic started, because, life happens and we get busy. So I'd already not seen her then. And then the pandemic started, and guess what? I still haven't seen her. Not because she doesn't want to see me or my family, my wife and kids. Not because I don't want to see her. But because the government, Big Daddy government, there they go. Gotta love the government, who you can trust so well with your freedom and liberty. Hence the sarcasm in my voice. And the media, who I also believe is funded by probably people in the government and many others, which I'm sure I'll get into in another podcast, has done nothing but spread lies and fear-mongering, causing people to cower in their homes and be scared of a virus that over 99% of the population will survive if they get it. So, because my grandmother is terrified of this thing, I have not been able to go around her. Now, bear in mind, she does have some health problems. She is, immune compromised, I would say. But if I'm not sick, how can I get her sick? Oh, that's right. What was that they told us last year? Well, you can have it and not know you have it. You can be asymptomatic. That was the big word going around. So basically, you're telling me I can be sick and not know I'm sick and never know I'm sick, but I can pass it to somebody else and they'll get it. Great. So because of that, if I go out and don't wear a mask, I don't love my fellow man. I'm telling you, like, the fear-mongering and the shaming that has gone on last year has been just pitiful. Horrendous. It's horrible. And now, here we are, and If people want to label me a conspiracy theorist, okay, whatever. I'm going to believe what I believe. I'm going to think what I think, regardless of what anybody thinks. And I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm going to say what I believe. I'm going to stand up for what I believe because America, okay? I mean, now we're at the point where places, you got New York is now requiring, what was it? Basically, proof that you have your vaccine to go in pretty much any indoor place, from what I remember seeing. You know, I'm sure there's more that will come out on that. And now, gradually, just like I was talking about with this medical facility where I live, you're going to have these places that are going to start coming out trying to, show their stuff and say, well, you got to get the vaccine or you can't work here. Well, I've got news for you. I don't care where I happen to be working. If they come and tell me, hey, you got to get this shot or you can't work here, guess what I'm going to say? I'm not getting the shot. And if they say, well, you're going to need to resign, I'm like, no, I'm not quitting. And that is what I would say to anybody who is as a strong a conviction as I am that doesn't want to be forced to do something they don't agree with. Stand your ground. Stand for what you believe in. And wherever you're at, if they try to make you do it, make them fire you. Don't quit. Don't even get me started on all the people that have sat at home the last year collecting hush money from the government and caused the economy to be where it's at now. We have super high gas prices, which I'll say they're not as high as they've been before, but they're a lot higher than they were this time, I don't know, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Pretty much the whole last 4 years of the previous president, who, quite frankly, I still believe should still be the president, because I believe the election was full of crap. And there's a whole lot of other people that believe it too. I'm not the only one. So that, in a nutshell, is what I wanted to talk about tonight. We're just really, for this country having been founded on Christian values and Christian principles, seeking freedom from an oppressive government who was trying to stop them from expressing their freedom of religion, I have to imagine that the ones who fought and died to get this country to where it was at are just rolling and turning in their graves right now. Because we are in a sad state in America. It used to be that people wanted to come to America. And if you look at the southern border, I guess that's still true. Which, there's another thing. If all this new variant that is so deadly, I've already Googled the best countries to live in. Need a backup plan. Lance, man, well, let me know where you end up going, because me and a few others may want to end up joining you. But I'm telling you, at this point, we're almost no better than China and Russia. Mexico and South America, for some crazy reason, still want to get up here, probably so they can smuggle drugs and stuff. I don't know. But you got a huge crisis at the border. Illegal immigrants just rushing in droves, and none of them are being forced to get the vaccine. None of them are being forced to be tested for this deadly virus. Oh, which, by the way, if I haven't said it before, over 99% survival rate. If it was that big a deal, and they were that worried about the virus, they would stop what's going on at the border from happening. Plain and simple. It's a crapshoot right now is what it is. It's almost like living in the Twilight Zone, like, I can think back to September 11th, which I now believe was not necessarily unplanned. But I remember being, I guess I was 14 years old, almost 15. I remember it just like it was yesterday. I remember seeing that happen live on TV and just thinking, I can't believe this is happening. This is America. This isn't supposed to happen here. And at that time, I never would have imagined we'd be where we're at as a country today. It's just, it is so sad and disheartening. But we have hope in Christ. We know that one day He's coming back, and that one day, if we know Him, we'll be in heaven with Him, and we'll be free from all the crap that's in this world, because heaven is free from all that. No sickness, no pain, no death, no dying. No death, no dying. Same thing. Nothing bad is in heaven. Everything is good there. We won't have to deal with any of this. And there we tied in back to the reason for this whole gaming channel, this whole podcast, is to share the gospel. So other people can have a relationship with Jesus Christ and spend eternity in heaven and not have to live here for eternity, because eternity is going to be hell. So it's going to be this, what we have, times way, way, way worse. Eternal torment. Many would argue that that's fear-mongering, but if it's the truth, it's not fear-mongering. That's my opinion. When you're trying to get people to do something because you want to control them, and you lie to them so they'll do it, that's fear-mongering. Again, that's just my 2 cents. That's why I'm glad I still have the freedom to start a podcast and say what I want to say. And who knows, maybe I'll get more bold and say even some more things that I've suppressed a little bit. But I'm sure I'll get into that in some other podcast. But back to the reason for this whole thing. John 3:16. For God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him will not perish, but have everlasting life. That is the essence of it all. If you don't know Jesus, you can know Him. And He's the only person you'd ever want to know once you meet Him. He's the best. Some people think He's make-believe. Some people think He's not real. Some people think He was just a prophet or just a good man. But He's so much more than that. First of all, He is real. He does exist. He lived on this earth. Lived 33 years, lived a perfect life, died on the cross for your sins, so that you wouldn't have to spend eternity separated from Him in a place called hell. Hot Corner. Yes, I do watch the Hodge Twins. Love those guys, man. They are truthful and hilarious all at the same time. But it's just come to the point where you either stand for what you believe or you don't. And there can only be one right and there can only be one wrong. And we can argue back and forth about opinions on coronavirus and vaccines and politics all day long for the rest of our lives. But none of that stuff is going to matter. And truthfully, even though I'm still going to stand for what I believe is right, truthfully, at the end of the day, none of that stuff matters. Instead of being worried if you're going to die from COVID-19 or the Delta variant, you should be worried if you're going to die without Jesus Christ. Because that would be way worse. Way, way worse. So that being said, I'm going to bring this to a close. I hope everyone has enjoyed this podcast. Now we will be continuing shortly with the regular stream like normal with Warzone. I'm going to go ahead and bring the podcast to a close. Hope you enjoyed it. I will be pulling the audio from this recording and uploading it to all the major podcast locations. This is my first time doing a podcast. I have no idea what they're called. Wherever you listen to podcasts, I'm going to try to get this on there. And once I do, I'll be sure and post updates as to how you can go and find it and listen to it if you missed it. Didn't mean for that to come through right in the middle of scripture. There's a bit of a delay for me. Good first podcast, though. Appreciate it, man. I'm hoping to do many more, and I really appreciate you tuning in. That means a heck of a lot. And same for you, Georgia Bull. Appreciate you coming in and offering some feedback, But we'll keep doing this. I'm not always going to talk about, what's going on in the world, because we got to have some fun too. So I'm definitely going to talk about football because that's fast approaching. My Georgia Bulldogs got a game coming up September 4th against Clemson Tigers. It's going to be a knockdown dragout. I already know it. Dogs going to pull out the W somehow. We're going to break the Georgia curse this year. I feel it. But if not, there's always next year, right? That's the running joke anyways. And then, of course, hunting season will be coming around, so that'll be something fun to talk about. And I'm also open to any of the listeners, any of you guys listening. If y'all got something you want to talk about, jump in the chat. We'll talk about it. Send me a message on something you want me to cover in a podcast. I'll do it, or I'll do my best to do it anyways. But appreciate you tuning in, and we are going to take a brief break, intermission, pause. What's the other word? Is there another word? Recess? That's what they use in courts. Recess. I like that word. Recess sounds fun. We're going to take a brief recess before we begin the gaming stream. So if y'all want to go get something to eat, take a nap, go to bed and wake up a little bit later, do whatever you want to do. And we will be back shortly. Thank you again for tuning in. This has been the He is Greater Than I Gaming